The first time I killed for Silas Hawthorne, he didn't even look up from his dinner. I'm standing in our bedroom right now, my hands shaking as I fold his shirts for the last time, and that memory hits me like a bullet to the chest. 3 years ago, some rival family soldier had broken into our home, gun aimed at Silas's head while he ate the ossobuco I'd spent 4 hours preparing. I grabbed the kitchen knife, my kitchen knife, the one I used to dice vegetables and carve roasts, and I buried it in that man's throat before he could pull the trigger. Blood sprayed across the white tablecloth, across my face, across the meal I'd made with love. Silas wiped his mouth with a napkin, stepped over the body and said, "Call the cleaning crew, and next time try to keep the blood off the food." No thank you. No are you okay? No acknowledgement that his Omega had just saved his life. That should have been my first clue. But I was young and stupid and so desperately in love with a man who saw me as furniture, as something that came with the house, as the pretty Omega his family arranged for him to bond with to secure an alliance I didn't even understand at the time. If you've ever loved someone who couldn't see you, hit that subscribe button right now because this story is about to get darker than you can imagine. My fingers traced the collar of his black silk shirt, the one he wore last week to execute a traitor in our basement, while I scrubbed blood out of the granite countertops upstairs. I knew every thread of this man's life. I knew he took his coffee at exactly 6 a.m., black with 1 sugar, never 2. I knew his left shoulder ached when it rained because of the bullet wound from 2 years ago that I stitched up myself because he refused to see a doctor. I knew he had nightmares about his father's death every 3rd Tuesday and would wake up swinging. So I learned to sleep light and stay out of reach. I knew which meetings were just business and which ones meant someone would die, based on which tie he chose. I knew everything about Silas Hawthorne except how to make him love me. The mansion is quiet tonight. Too quiet. Silas is out handling some business with Maddox, his consigliere, the man who's been whispering poison in his ear for 3 years. I didn't understand it at first, why Maddox looked at me with such contempt. Why he'd make little comments in front of Silas about how Omegas were meant to be seen and not heard. How I should be grateful for the roof over my head. How showing appreciation to an Omega made an alpha look weak in front of the other families. And Silas listened. God, he listened to every word. 2 weeks ago, I served dinner to 12 of Silas's top men. I'd spent 2 days preparing a 7-course meal because these meetings mattered, because impressing these men meant securing territories and alliances that kept us all alive. The panna cotta alone took 6 hours to perfect. When I brought out the main course, my hands steady despite my exhaustion, one of the men, Antonio, I think his name was, said, "Hawthorne, you've got yourself a perfect little housekeeper here." Everyone laughed. Even Silas. That cold, dismissive laugh that told me exactly what I was to him. Not a partner. Not a mate. A housekeeper. Maddox leaned back in his chair, cigar smoke curling around his smug face, and said, "That's all Omegas are good for. Really? Keeping house and looking pretty. It's in their nature." I waited for Silas to defend me, to say something, anything. We were bonded, for God's sake. The mark on my neck burned with the need for him to claim me, to value me, to see me as more than a servant. Instead, Silas raised his glass and said, "To useful things." I dropped the serving tray. It shattered across the marble floor, pasta and porcelain exploding in every direction. 12 pairs of eyes turned to me. I saw irritation flash across Silas's face, like I'd embarrassed him in front of his men, like I was a misbehaving pet. "Clean it up," he said, his voice flat. Then he turned back to his conversation like I'd already disappeared. I cleaned it up. I cleaned up everything just like I always did. Then I walked upstairs, packed a single bag, and made a decision that would change everything. I was leaving Silas Hawthorne. Comment below if you've ever felt invisible to someone you loved, because what happens next is going to break your heart before it puts it back together. But here's what I didn't know as I zipped up that bag. I wasn't just Ezra, the unwanted Omega. I wasn't just the invisible housekeeper in a mafia mansion. I was so much more than that, and the secret of who I really am. It's the reason Maddox wanted me broken and submissive. It's the reason my bond with Silas was arranged in the first place. It's the reason everything I thought I knew about my life was a carefully constructed lie. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I left on a Tuesday night in November, while Silas was in a meeting that would run until 3 a.m. I knew his schedule better than he did. I knew I had a 6-hour window before he'd even notice I was gone. And even then, would he care? Or would he just hire someone new to press his shirts and warm his bed? I didn't leave a note. What would I even say? Thank you for 3 years of feeling worthless? Thank you for treating me like I was lucky to scrub your blood off the bathroom tiles? Thank you for the bond mark that burns on my neck every time you ignore my existence? I just left. The city lights blurred past the taxi window as I headed to the train station. My hands were shaking. The bond was screaming at me. A physical ache in my chest that told me I was abandoning my alpha, that I was broken and wrong and bad for leaving. But I gritted my teeth and pushed through it. I spent 3 years ignoring my own pain. I could ignore this too. I didn't have much of a plan. I had some money I'd saved, not much, because Silas controlled the finances and gave me an allowance like I was a child, and a friend from before my life became the Hawthorne Mansion. Iris ran a network of safe houses for Omega's escaping bad situations. She'd helped me once before, years ago, and I prayed she'd help me again. The train ride took 4 hours. I watched the darkness outside, feeling the bond stretch and strain like a rubber band pulled too tight. Would it snap? Would Silas feel it when I got far enough away? Would he even care? Somewhere around hour 2, my phone started ringing. Silas. I stared at his name on the screen, my thumb hovering over the answer button. Part of me, the stupid, hopeful part that still loved him, wanted to answer. Wanted to hear him say he'd noticed I was gone, that he was worried, that he needed me. I let it ring out. He called 17 more times before I finally turned off my phone. Iris met me at the station in a coastal town called Northaven, a place so far from Silas's territory that it might as well have been another country. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug that made me break down completely. I cried in her arms right there on the platform, 3 years of suppressed pain pouring out of me like blood from a wound. He didn't deserve you, she whispered into my hair. He never did. She drove me to a small apartment above a cafe she owned, a cozy space with windows overlooking the ocean. It was tiny compared to the mansion. There was no marble, no crystal chandeliers, no imported Italian furniture. Just simple, clean, peaceful. It was perfect. Stay as long as you need, Iris said, squeezing my hand. You're safe here. But I wasn't safe. Not really. Because 2 days after I arrived, Iris sat me down with a cup of tea and a manila envelope that would destroy everything I thought I knew about myself. Make sure you're subscribed because the truth I'm about to discover will flip this entire story on its head. Ezra, Iris said carefully, like she was defusing a bomb. There's something you need to know. Something about who you really are. I stared at the envelope. My hands were shaking again. What are you talking about? Your grandmother, she said. Rosa Valentino. She's dying. And she's been looking for you for 3 years. The name Valentino hit me like a freight train. Everyone in the mafia world knew that name. The Valentino family had ruled the Eastern Territories 20 years ago, until the Hawthorns destroyed them in a bloody war that left hundreds dead. The Valentinos were wiped out. Gone. History. That's impossible, I whispered. My parents died in a car accident when I was 6. I grew up in foster care. I'm nobody. Iris opened the envelope and pulled out a birth certificate. My birth certificate. Except the name on it wasn't the one I'd grown up with. And the father listed was Domenico Valentino, the late boss of the Valentino Empire. My father was mafia royalty, which meant I was... You're the heir, Iris said softly. The only surviving Valentino. And Ezra, your bond with Silas Hawthorne? It wasn't random. It was orchestrated. Maddox knew who you were. He's the one who arranged for you to be placed in foster care under a false identity after your parents were killed. He's the one who set up the bond between you and Silas. He kept you powerless and invisible specifically, so you'd never discover your birthright. The room tilted. Couldn't breathe. Why? Why would he do that? Because legally, the Eastern Territories belong to you. The Hawthorns took them by force, but the original claim was your family's. If you ever discovered who you were, if you ever claimed your inheritance, you could challenge everything the Hawthorne family built. You could take it all back. I laughed, came out broken and bitter. I can't even get my alpha to thank me for doing his laundry. How am I supposed to challenge an entire mafia empire? You're not alone. Iris pushed another document across the table. Your grandmother left you everything before she died 3 days ago. Money, resources, and an army of people loyal to the Valentino name who've been waiting 20 years for an heir to return. 3 days ago, while I was scrubbing Silas's bathroom floors, my grandmother, a woman I never knew existed, was dying and leaving me an empire. If this plot twist just blew your mind, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me what you think Silas will do when he finds out. The next 6 months were a blur. I buried myself in my new life, trying to process the impossible truth while simultaneously learning how to be someone I'd never imagined I could be. The cafe became my refuge. I worked the morning shift, making coffee and serving pastries, and for the first time in 3 years, people saw me. They smiled at me. They said please and thank you. They asked how I was doing and actually waited for an answer. I started painting again. I'd loved art before Silas, before the mansion, before I became invisible. Now I set up an easel by the window and painted the ocean, the sunsets, the seagulls. My apartment walls filled with color and life. I gained weight. Healthy weight that came from eating meals I actually enjoyed instead of picking at leftovers after serving Silas and his men. The shadows under my eyes faded. I laughed more. I breathed easier. The bond still hurt. Every day it ached. A reminder that somewhere out there, my alpha existed and didn't want me enough to find me. But the pain became background noise. Manageable. Survivable. And then I met Callum Reed. He walked into the cafe on a rainy Tuesday morning, shaking water from his dark hair, and ordered a black coffee with a smile that made my stomach flip. He was handsome in an understated way, sharp jawline, kind eyes, the build of someone who worked with his hands. A beta, I realized with relief. No alpha pheromones to trigger my bond mark. No power dynamics to navigate. Just a normal, nice guy. "You're new in town," he said, leaning against the counter while I made his coffee. "Is it that obvious? Small town. Everyone knows everyone. And I definitely would have remembered you." He said it without sleaze, just honest appreciation that made me blush for the first time in years. His name was Callum Reed, and he was an architect renovating some of the historic buildings downtown. He started coming in every morning. We'd talk while I made his coffee, about his projects, about my paintings, about nothing and everything. He made me laugh. He asked questions and listened to my answers. He noticed when I changed my hair. He complimented my art. He saw me. 2 months after we met, he asked me to dinner. I said yes. We went to a small Italian restaurant, and he pulled out my chair and asked what I liked instead of ordering for me. He told me about his family, his dreams of starting his own firm someday. He asked about mine. I lied. I told him I was just an Omega who'd left a bad situation. Nothing more. I couldn't tell him the truth, that I was mafia royalty in hiding, that I had an alpha I was still bonded to, that my entire existence was complicated in ways he couldn't imagine. But for a few hours, I pretended I was just Ezra. Just a normal Omega on a normal date with a normal, sweet beta who treated me like I mattered. It felt like coming up for air after drowning for 3 years. Callum kissed me goodnight on my doorstep. It was soft and gentle and asked nothing of me except to be present. When I went inside, I cried. Not because I was sad, but because I'd forgotten what it felt like to be cherished. We started seeing each other regularly. Nothing serious, just dates and conversations and slow, careful building of something that felt safe. He never pushed. He never demanded. He was just there, present, attentive. Everything Silas wasn't. Subscribe if you can already see the disaster coming, because when these two worlds collide, it's going to be explosive. For months into my new life, Iris called me into her office with a grave expression that made my stomach drop. "They found you," she said. "Who?" "Everyone. The Valentino family wants to present you to the underworld." They've been preparing for months, building alliances, calling in old debts. They want you to take your rightful place as head of the family. And Ezra? She paused, her hand gripping mine. Silas knows. He's been searching for you for months. He's tracked you here. The room spun. When? He's in town. Right now. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Please. My hands shook as I stared at those words. Please. Silas Hawthorne had never said please to me in 3 years. And now, 6 months after I left, he was here asking. There's more, Iris said quietly. The Valentino family is hosting a gathering tomorrow night. They're officially announcing you as the heir. Every major family will be there, including the Hawthorns. You're supposed to make your debut as the true ruler of the Eastern Territories. It's going to start a war. I don't want a war. I just wanted to be free. I know, but you're not just Ezra anymore. You're Ezra Valentino. And the mafia world doesn't let people like you stay hidden. That night, Callum took me to the beach. He'd been planning a special evening, candles, a picnic, the works. He'd been building up to something, I could tell. Something important. Ezra, he said, taking my hands as the sun set over the water. I know we haven't been together long, but I need you to know something. You're the most incredible person I've ever met. You're kind and strong and talented. And being with you has been the best part of my year. My heart sank. I knew what was coming. I'm falling in love with you, he said simply. And I want to build a life with you. No pressure, no rush. I just needed you to know where I stand. I should have felt happy. This was what I'd wanted. Wasn't it? Someone who loved me, who saw me, who valued me. But all I felt was trapped. Because at that exact moment I saw him, standing 50 feet away on the boardwalk, backlit by the pier lights. Tall, broad-shouldered, devastatingly handsome in a way that still made my traitorous heart skip. Silas Hawthorne, my alpha, the man who'd broken me, the man I'd run from, the man who was staring at me and Callum with an expression I'd never seen on his face before. Devastation. Comment right now and tell me who you think Ezra should choose, because this decision is about to get so much more complicated. Callum followed my gaze and tensed. Do you know him? I couldn't speak. The bond roared to life. 6 months of dormant pain exploding in my chest like a bomb. My neck burned where Silas's mark sat. My Omega instincts screamed at me to go to him, to submit, to return to my alpha. But my heart, my broken, healing heart, remembered every dismissal, every humiliation, every moment of feeling invisible. Silas started walking toward us. He moved like a predator, controlled and purposeful. But there was something different about him. His clothes were wrinkled. His hair was messy. He had dark circles under his eyes that matched the ones I used to have. He looked like hell. He looked like he'd been searching for 6 months straight without rest. Ezra, he said, and his voice cracked on my name. Please, I need to talk to you. Callum stepped protectively in front of me. The Omega said no when he left you. Respect that. You don't understand. I understand plenty. Callum's voice was steel. I understand Ezra was hurting when I met him. I understand he's finally healing. And I understand that you being here is going to undo all that progress. Silas's eyes flashed with something dangerous. The alpha in him bristled at a beta telling him what to do. I saw his hands clench into fists, saw the violence brewing beneath his skin. The old Silas would have snapped Callum's neck for speaking to him that way. But he didn't. He took a breath and stepped back, hands raised in surrender. You're right, Silas said quietly. You're absolutely right. But Ezra, I'm begging you. Give me 5 minutes. That's all. If you want me to leave after that, I'll leave. I'll never bother you again. I should have said no. I should have walked away. But there was something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Something raw and desperate and real. 5 minutes, I heard myself say. Callum looked at me, betrayal flickering across his face, but he nodded. I'll wait at the car. He kissed my forehead and walked away, leaving me alone with the man who'd destroyed me. Silas and I stood there in the sand, the ocean crashing behind us, 6 months of silence stretching between us like a chasm. "You look good," he said finally. "Healthy. Happy." "I am. Good. That's good." He rubbed his face, and I noticed his hands were shaking. Silas never shook. "I didn't come here to mess that up. I came here to say I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix 3 years of—" "I know." He cut me off, his voice breaking. "I know it doesn't. But I need you to hear it anyway. I'm sorry, Ezra. I'm sorry for every time I dismissed you. Every time I took you for granted. Every time I made you feel invisible. I'm sorry for not protecting you from Maddox. I'm sorry for laughing when they called you a housekeeper. I'm sorry for treating you like you were replaceable when you were the only thing holding my entire life together." Tears burned in my eyes. "Why now? Why do you care now?" "Because I've spent 6 months trying to replace you and realizing you can't be replaced." His voice was raw, stripped of all the cold control I'd known. "I hired 14 people to do what you did. 14. And none of them could come close. The first housekeeper shrunk all my clothes. The cook couldn't remember that I hate onions. The assistant double-booked all my meetings. One of them quit after 3 days because she found blood on my shirt and couldn't handle it. Another one organized my office wrong, and it cost me a deal worth millions." He laughed, bitter and broken. "But it wasn't about the chores, Ezra. It was everything else. The house felt dead without you. I'd wake up and you wouldn't be there. I'd come home and there'd be no one to talk to, even if I was too stupid to talk to you before. I'd get injured and have to stitch myself up because no one else knew how. I'd have nightmares and wake up alone. Food tasted like cardboard. The mansion was just a building. Everything fell apart. Drop a like if you felt that in your soul, because Silas is about to reveal something that changes everything." "I thought I was going crazy," he continued. "I thought maybe I was just stressed or overworked. But then 3 months in, I found something." He pulled out his phone and showed me a video. It was security footage from the mansion, dated 2 years ago. In it, I was stitching up a wound on his back after a fight, and he was passed out from exhaustion. I was crying silently while I worked, tears streaming down my face as I carefully closed the gash. "I had thousands of hours of security footage," Silas said hoarsely. "I never watched it before. Why would I? But after you left, I couldn't sleep. I'd stay up all night going through the footage, trying to understand why everything felt so wrong. And I saw you, Ezra. I saw everything." He swiped to another video. Me cooking at 3 a.m. because he'd called and said he was coming home hungry. Me organizing his office while he slept. Me managing his schedule, taking calls, handling problems he never knew existed. Me cleaning blood out of carpets, disposing of bodies, lying to police. Me doing 1,000 invisible things that kept his entire world running. But what broke me was the next video. It was from the night of that dinner, the night I left. The camera showed me in the kitchen afterward, sitting on the floor, hugging my knees and sobbing so hard I was shaking. "I did that to you," Silas whispered. "I broke you every single day and never even noticed. And the worst part? When I finally went to confront Maddox about why he kept telling me not to appreciate you, I found out the truth." His jaw clenched. "Maddox knew who you were. He's known since before we were bonded. He knew you were a Valentino, and he orchestrated our entire relationship to keep you powerless. He wanted you broken and submissive so you'd never discover your birthright. He wanted me to treat you like garbage so you'd never realize you could challenge my family's claim to the territories." Ice flooded my veins. "How did you find out?" "I killed him," Silas said it flatly. "When I couldn't find you, when I was going insane trying to track you down, I started investigating everyone around me. I found his communications with people in your old foster system. I found the falsified documents. I found everything. And I put a bullet in his head for what he did to you." He stepped closer, and I could see unshed tears in his eyes. Silas Hawthorne, the ice-cold mafia heir, was crying. "I don't expect you to forgive me," he said. "I don't expect you to come back. I know about Callum. I know he treats you the way I should have from the beginning. I know you're better off without me. But I needed you to know that I see you now. I see everything you did, everything you were, everything I threw away. And I'm so goddamn sorry. My 5 minutes were up. I should have walked away, but I couldn't move. There's something else you need to know, Silas said. Tomorrow night, the Valentino family is announcing you as their heir. Every major family will be there, including mine. They're going to challenge the Hawthorne claim to the Eastern Territories. It's going to start a war. I know. Ezra. He grabbed my hands, desperate. You're walking into a trap. Not everyone in the Valentino family wants you alive. Some of them just want to use you as a figurehead to legitimize their own grab for power. And once you've served your purpose, they'll kill you. How do you know that? Because I've spent 6 months infiltrating their organization to protect you. He pulled out another phone, this one full of encrypted messages and intelligence reports. I have contacts everywhere. The second I found out you were a Valentino, I started gathering information. Half of your supposed family wants you dead, Ezra. They're using you. My head spun. Why would you do that? Why would you protect me? Because I love you. He said it simply, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. I've loved you since the day you killed that man to save my life. I just was too broken and stupid to admit it. I love you when you're pressing my shirts and when you're painting by the window. I love you when you're mad at me and when you're crying. I love you broken and I love you healed. I love every version of you. And I will spend the rest of my life proving it if you give me the chance. Subscribe right now because what happens next will determine the fate of 2 mafia empires. I stood there, torn between 2 futures. Behind me, Callum waited, safe, gentle, uncomplicated love. In front of me stood Silas, dangerous, broken. The man who destroyed me but was now offering everything I'd ever wanted. I need time, I whispered. I know. But Ezra, whatever you decide about us, please don't go to that gathering tomorrow. It's a death trap. I have to. This is my family. My heritage. Then let me protect you. His grip tightened on my hands. Let me stand with you, not as your alpha, not as someone who wants to control you, but as someone who wants to keep you alive. I pulled my hands away. I'll think about it. I walked back to Callum, my heart in pieces. He drove me home in silence, sensing something had shifted but too kind to push. That was your alpha, he said finally as we reached my apartment. Yes. You're still bonded to him. Yes. Do you still love him? I wanted to lie, but Callum deserved the truth. I don't know. I love who I wanted him to be. I don't know if I can love who he actually is. Callum parked and turned to face me. Ezra, I meant what I said on the beach. I'm falling for you, but I'm not stupid. I see the way you looked at him. I see the bond mark on your neck that you can't hide. If you need to figure this out, I understand. But I need you to know. I'm not going to wait forever. I deserve someone who chooses me without hesitation. He was right. He deserved better than this. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be sorry. Just be honest with yourself about what you want. He kissed my forehead one last time. Whatever you decide, I hope you choose yourself first. He drove away, leaving me alone in the dark. That night I couldn't sleep. I stood by the window, watching the ocean, my mind racing through impossible choices. The truth was, I didn't know what I wanted. Part of me, the part that had loved Silas for 3 years, wanted to believe he'd changed. Wanted to believe his tears were real, his love was real, that this time would be different. But another part remembered the pain, remembered being invisible, remembered crying on kitchen floors while he laughed with his men about how Omegas were only good for keeping house. And then there was Callum. Sweet, uncomplicated Callum who'd shown me what it felt like to be valued from day one. Who'd never made me beg for scraps of affection. Who offered me a future without pain. But Callum didn't know the darkness inside me. Didn't know I'd killed people. Didn't know I was mafia royalty about to step into a world of violence and power. Could he love me if he knew the truth? Could I build a life with someone who only knew half of who I was? And underneath it all was the biggest question. Who was Ezra Valentino? Was I the invisible Omega who'd scrubbed blood from marble floors? Was I the heir to a mafia empire? Was I the version of myself I'd built in this coastal town? Was I all of them? None of them? Tomorrow night would force me to decide. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The car will pick you up at 7 p.m. Wear something that makes a statement. The Valentino name demands respect. Antonio Valentino, your uncle. Another text, this one from Silas. Whatever happens tomorrow, I'll be there. You're not alone. You were never alone. I was just too blind to see you. I see you now, Ezra. I see all of you. I looked at my reflection in the window. The Omega who'd left was gone. In her place was someone stronger. Someone who'd survived and healed and discovered she was so much more than what she'd been told. But was I strong enough for what came next? Comment below and tell me what you think is going to happen at this gathering. Because the truth is going to be so much worse than anyone expects. The next evening, I stood in front of my closet, staring at two outfits. One was a simple black suit Callum had helped me pick out last week. Understated, elegant, safe. The other was a deep crimson suit that Iris had bought me this morning, saying, if you're going to walk into a room full of criminals who think they own you, you might as well look like the king you actually are. I chose the crimson. The car arrived at 7 p.m. sharp. Not a request, an expectation. A sleek black Mercedes with tinted windows and a driver who didn't speak. I slid into the back seat, my heart hammering against my ribs. The drive took 40 minutes through winding roads that led deeper into territory I didn't recognize. We pulled up to an estate that made the Hawthorne mansion look like a cottage. All stone and iron and old money dripping from every surface. Security everywhere. Men with guns, cameras, the kind of protection that said whoever lived here had enemies. I stepped out of the car, and a man was waiting for me. Older, silver-haired, with eyes that looked eerily like mine when I caught my reflection. Ezra, he said, and his voice was warm but calculated. I'm Antonio Valentino, your uncle. Welcome home. Home. The word felt foreign on my tongue. He led me through massive doors into a ballroom that took my breath away. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, walls lined with portraits of people who shared my features. My bloodline, stretching back generations. And filling the room were dozens of people in expensive suits and dresses, all turning to look at me as I entered. I felt exposed, vulnerable, like prey walking into a den of wolves dressed in designer clothes. But I kept my head high and walked forward. Ladies and gentlemen, Antonio announced, his voice carrying across the room. I present to you Ezra Valentino, the rightful heir to the Valentino Empire, the last of Domenico's bloodline. Our future. Applause. Polite, calculated, assessing. I could feel every eye on me, measuring, judging, deciding if I was worthy of the name I just discovered I carried. And then the crowd parted. Silas stood there, flanked by two men I recognized as Hawthorne soldiers. But he looked nothing like the cold, controlled alpha I'd known. His suit was wrinkled. His tie was loose. His hair fell across his forehead instead of being perfectly styled back. He had dark circles under his eyes that mirrored my old ones. He looked like a man who'd spent 6 months in hell searching for something he'd lost. Our eyes met across the ballroom, and even from this distance, I felt it. The bond flaring to life like someone had lit a match in my chest. My Omega hindbrain screamed Alpha, Alpha, yours, yours, yours. I shoved it down. Biology didn't get to make my choices anymore. Ezra, Silas said, and his voice was hoarse. Thank God you're okay. He started walking toward me. His guards tried to stop him. This was enemy territory, after all, and he was here as a representative of the family that had destroyed mine. But he shrugged them off like they were nothing. Don't, I said, holding up a hand. Don't come near me. He stopped, and the look on his face, devastation mixed with understanding mixed with desperate hope, almost broke me. I'm sorry, he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. For everything. For not seeing you. For not valuing you. For treating you like you were replaceable when you were the only thing holding my entire life together. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. An alpha publicly apologizing? Unheard of in this world. You're 6 months too late, I said, my voice steady despite the chaos in my chest. I know, and I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. I just needed you to know that I finally understand. You weren't lucky to have me. I was lucky to have you. And I threw it away because I was too arrogant and stupid to recognize what was right in front of me. More murmurs. This was scandal. Entertainment. Two families. Decades of bloodshed between them. And here was a Hawthorne heir begging forgiveness from a Valentino Omega in front of everyone. If you're still watching, hit that subscribe button because this confrontation is about to explode in ways no one expects. I hired 14 people to replace you, Silas continued, and there were actual tears in his eyes now. 14. And none of them could come close. Because it wasn't about the chores, Ezra. It was you. The way you knew I hated onions. The way you could tell from my tie which meetings meant violence. The way you'd stitch my wounds at 2 a.m. without being asked. The way you made the house feel like a home, even when I was too broken to appreciate it. He took a shaky breath. I watched thousands of hours of security footage. I saw everything you did that I never noticed. I saw you crying in the kitchen. I saw you having panic attacks in the bathroom. I saw what I did to you and it destroyed me. Because you deserved so much better than what I gave you. Stop, I whispered. But my voice was lost in the crowd. I found out about Maddox, he said. About who you really are. About how he orchestrated everything to keep you powerless. I killed him for it. He said it flatly, no emotion, and several people in the crowd shifted uncomfortably. And then I spent 6 months trying to find you. Not because I wanted to bring you back to the mansion. Not because I wanted things to go back to how they were. But because I needed you to know that I see you now. All of you. The Omega who saved my life. The artist who paints the ocean. The survivor who walked away from me even though the bond could have killed you. You're the strongest person I've ever met, and I was too blind to see it. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him so badly. But then another voice cut through the room. Ezra. I turned. Callum stood in the entrance, and he looked wrong here, too normal, too kind, too out of place among these dangerous people in their expensive clothes. You lied to me, I said, because I suddenly knew. I could see it in his face. I did, he admitted, walking closer. The family asked me to watch over you, to get close to you, to convince you to claim your heritage. And I said yes because I'm loyal to the Valentino name. He stopped a few feet away. But Ezra, somewhere along the way, it stopped being an assignment. The way you laugh. The way you bite your lip when you're concentrating on a painting. The way you're kind to everyone even though life has given you every reason not to be. I fell in love with you. Really, genuinely in love with you. How am I supposed to believe that? Tears were streaming down my face now. How am I supposed to trust anything either of you say when everything has been manipulation and lies? You're not, Silas said quietly. We don't deserve your trust. But Ezra, you asked me once what you were to me. And I didn't have an answer then because I was too emotionally stunted to understand. But I understand now. You're not my housekeeper. You're not my obligation. You're my home. You're the only person who ever made me feel like I was more than just the Hawthorne heir. And I was too stupid to see that you were giving me that gift every single day. And you, I turned to Callum. You showed me what it felt like to be valued. But it was all based on a lie. The feelings weren't a lie, Callum insisted. I'll walk away from the family. I'll give up any claim to Valentino resources. I'll be nobody just like you thought I was. Just give me a chance to prove that I love you for you, not what you represent. I stood there, caught between two men who'd hurt me in different ways, in a room full of criminals who all wanted something from me, and I realized something crucial. This wasn't about choosing between Silas and Callum. This was about choosing myself. Comment below what you think Ezra should do, because what he decides next will shock everyone in this room. I looked at Antonio. You want me to take my place as head of the Valentino family. Yes, it's your birthright, your destiny. And you, I turned to Silas. You want me to forgive you, come back to you, give you a second chance. I want you to be happy, Silas said. Even if that means I'm not part of your life. Even if that means you choose him. He gestured to Callum. I just want you to be safe and valued the way you should have been from the beginning. And you, I looked at Callum. You want me to believe you actually love me. I do love you. I'll spend the rest of my life proving it if you let me. I took a breath, and the entire ballroom went silent. Here's what I'm going to do, I said. I'm going to tell you all the truth. Not the version you want to hear. The actual truth. The room held its breath. Antonio, I don't want to be a mafia boss. I don't want territories or power or revenge. I spent 3 years being used as a pawn, and I'm done playing games. So you can take your birthright and your empire and find someone else to wear the crown. I'm not interested in being anyone's figurehead or puppet king. Antonio's face went red. You ungrateful. I'm not finished. My voice was steel now, and I felt power in it. Not the power they wanted me to have, but my own. But I'm also not stupid. You're right that I have a legal claim to the Eastern Territories. A claim that predates the Hawthorne takeover. So here's my offer. I'll sign over all my rights to the Valentino family. All of it. The territories, the resources, the legal claims. Everything. What's the condition? Antonio asked suspiciously. You leave me alone. Completely. Forever. No more soldiers watching me. No more manipulation. No more using my name for your wars. I want out, and I want it in writing with witnesses and lawyers and every legal protection that exists. You get your territories back, and I get my life back. Take it or leave it. Antonio looked like he wanted to argue, but slowly, very slowly, he nodded. Deal. We'll draw up the papers. Good. I turned to Callum, and my heart ached. As for you, I believe that you developed feelings for me. I really do. But Callum, they started with a lie, and I can't build a relationship on that foundation. I deserve someone who chose me from the very beginning, not someone who had to overcome their initial deception to find something real. You're a good person, but you're not my person. His face crumpled, but he nodded with dignity. I understand. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. You deserved better than what I gave you. I know, and I'm choosing to give that to myself. Then I turned to Silas, the man who'd broken me, the man who'd finally learned to see me, the man I'd loved for 3 years even when he couldn't love me back. The entire ballroom held its breath. You destroyed me, I said softly, but my voice carried in the silence. For 3 years, you made me feel invisible and worthless and lucky just to be tolerated. You let Maddox poison your mind against me. You laughed when they called me a housekeeper. You made me feel like I was nothing. I know. And I'm not done. I walked closer, close enough to see the tears on his face, close enough to feel the bond humming between us. But then I left. And you know what I realized while I was gone? I wasn't nothing. I was everything. I was the one holding your entire life together. I was the one who knew you better than you knew yourself. I was the one who saved your life more times than you'll ever know. Not because you deserved it, but because despite everything, some stupid part of me loved you. I love you too, he whispered. I love you so much it terrifies me. I believe you. But Silas, love isn't enough. It's not enough to erase 3 years of damage. It's not enough to make me trust you again overnight. It's not enough to make me come back to that mansion and pretend everything's fine. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I know. I just needed you to know that you were never the problem. And I'll regret losing you for the rest of my life. I reached up and touched his face, wiping away a tear. The bond sang between us, warm and alive and permanent. Here's what's going to happen, I said carefully. I'm going back to Nordhaven. I'm going to keep working at the cafe and painting and healing. And you're going to leave me alone. His face fell. For now, I continued, you're going to go to therapy. Real therapy with a professional who specializes in trauma and emotional regulation. Not just talking to your men or your lawyer. You're going to deal with your father's death and Maddox's manipulation and all the walls you've built around yourself. You're going to learn how to be a partner. Not just an alpha who thinks saying, I love you, fixes everything. I'll do it. All of it. And you're going to prove it's not just words. You're going to show me through actions, not promises, that you've actually changed. That you can see people, value people, appreciate the invisible work that goes into keeping a life running. How long? He asked desperately. A year. A full year of therapy, of work, of becoming someone who can be a real partner. And Silas, I need you to understand something crucial. I'm not waiting for you. I'm not putting my life on hold. I'm not making promises. I'm moving forward. If you do the work and our paths cross again and it feels right, then maybe we can try again. Not as Alpha and Omega, not as boss and servant, but as equals. Hope flared in his ice-blue eyes. I can do that. I can be that for you. But if you show up in Nordhaven before that year is up, if you try to rush this or manipulate me or pressure me, I'm gone forever. Do you understand? 1 year. Not 11 months. Not 364 days. A full year, and only if you've actually done the work. I understand. And one more thing. I looked around the room at all these powerful people who'd been watching our drama unfold. You're going to restructure how you treat the people who work for you. All of you. I raised my voice so everyone could hear. The people who clean your houses and cook your meals and do the invisible work that keeps your empires running. You're going to see them. You're going to value them. You're going to pay them fairly and treat them with dignity. Because I guarantee there are other people in your lives right now who are breaking themselves trying to be perfect enough to be noticed. Don't do to them what was done to me. Silas nodded, something like awe on his face. You're not just asking me to change. You're changing the whole system. Someone has to. And if I have any power in this world, whether it's as Ezra Valentino or just Ezra, I'm going to use it to make sure no one else feels invisible. I stepped back, putting distance between us. Now I'm leaving. None of you are following me. Not you. I looked at Antonio. Not you. I looked at Callum. And especially not you. I looked at Silas. I'm going home. To my home. My apartment above a cafe in a small town where people say please and thank you. And I'm going to keep being Ezra. Not Valentino. Not anyone's Omega. Just Ezra. I walked toward the door. The crowd parted like water. No one tried to stop me. At the threshold, I turned back one last time. Oh, and Silas? That thing you said about me being your home? You were my home too. For 3 years, I tried to build a home in your heart, in your life, in your world. But you kept the door locked. If you really do the work, if you really change, maybe one day you'll learn how to let someone in. How to be a home for someone instead of just a house they clean. And then I walked out. Into the night. Into my life. Into my future. Behind me, I heard Silas say, quietly but clearly enough for the room to hear, "Thank you, Ezra, for everything. Thank you for saving my life more times than I deserved. Thank you for seeing me when I couldn't see you. Thank you for loving me even when I didn't know how to love you back. Thank you for giving me a chance to become someone worthy of you. Thank you." I didn't turn around, but I smiled, because for the first time in my life I'd chosen myself. And it felt like finally coming home. If this ending hit you in the feels, make sure you're subscribed because there's an epilogue you absolutely need to see. 1 year later, I was hanging the last painting in my gallery when I felt it, that pull in my chest that meant my alpha was near. Except Silas Hawthorne wasn't my alpha anymore. Not really. We'd both been working with bond specialists, learning to manage the connection without letting it control us. Learning that biology didn't have to be destiny. I turned around slowly. He stood in the doorway of the small gallery I'd rented for my first real art show, and he looked different. His hair was longer, softer. He wore jeans and a simple sweater instead of a 3-piece suit. He had a beard, actually had facial hair, something the old Silas never would have allowed. He looked approachable, human, real. He looked like someone who'd spent a year learning to be a person instead of a weapon. "Hi," he said quietly. "Hi. It's been a year. Exactly 1 year. I counted every day." "I know." He walked closer, slowly, like he was approaching something precious that might break. "I did everything you asked. Therapy twice a week for 12 months. 48 sessions with Dr. Morrison. Left the family business. My cousin runs it now, and she's better at it than I ever was. Moved to a small town 3 hours from here. Started volunteering at a youth center, helping kids who aged out of foster care. Learned to cook. I'm still terrible at it, but I'm trying. Learn to clean my own house. Learn to say thank you to everyone. For everything, even the smallest things. I heard. You heard. Iris has contacts. I may have asked her to keep tabs on you. Just to make sure you were actually doing the work and not just waiting out the clock. A smile tugged at his lips. And? Did I pass? I studied him. Really looked. The ice in his eyes had melted into something warmer. The rigid posture had relaxed into something more natural. The man standing in front of me wasn't the cold alpha who'd treated me like furniture. He was someone new. Someone who'd been broken down and rebuilt into something better. You did the work, I said softly. I'm proud of you. Thank you. He said it like a prayer, like those two words meant everything. Ezra, I'm not here to ask you to come back to me. I'm just here to ask if you'd like to get coffee. Just coffee. Just two people talking. With no expectations or pressure or anything except the chance to see if there's still something here worth exploring. I should have been scared. Should have protected my heart. Should have remembered all the pain. But I also remembered the man Silas could have been if Maddox hadn't poisoned him. The man who'd been capable of softness before the world taught him to be hard. And I saw glimpses of that man now, standing in front of me with vulnerability in his eyes instead of ice. Okay, I said. Coffee. Just coffee. His face lit up like I'd given him the sun and the moon and all the stars. Really? Really? But Silas, if we do this, if we try this, everything is different. I'm not your servant. I'm not grateful to be chosen. I'm not going to shrink myself to fit into your life. I'm your equal or this doesn't happen. Equals, he agreed immediately. Partners. If you'll have me. I don't know if I will yet. We're starting completely over. From scratch. Like we're meeting for the first time. You have to earn my trust again. Every single day. I will. I'll prove it every day for the rest of my life if you let me. I picked up my jacket. Then let's go get that coffee. We walked out together into the sunshine, and for the first time in 4 years I felt like maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for something real. Not because an alpha had chosen me, but because I'd chosen myself first. And then, carefully, deliberately, with full knowledge of who I was and what I deserved, I was choosing to give him a chance to prove he could be worthy of that choice. The future was unwritten, the ending uncertain, but for the first time it was mine to write, the end. Drop a comment telling me, would you have given Silas another chance? Or should Ezra have walked away forever? Don't forget to like this video if the story touched you emotionally.